Looney says, good morning. He's very happy to see you. I'm going to tell a story about an animal today. Looney's not happy that the story's not about a cat, but perhaps it could be, but I'm not sure if you've ever heard this story. But we can always hear it again. Nothing like storytelling to give us experience of things. What are you looking at? Cats get fixated on things. Do not try to control your cat. Okay. So 5 blind ascetics in India, they form a little spiritual cadre. And because they're blind, the 5 of them together are able to exercise a bit more manageability and control over their existence. But still, they're blind. They're ascetics, not anesthetics. Ascetics, spiritual seekers, okay? And they're in India. And in this story, they're wandering through a forest, and these 5 blind spiritual seekers who are forming a spiritual cadre, they encounter an elephant. What's an elephant doing in this story? Well, the elephant is part of the story, so I just inserted the elephant. That's why the elephant is there. Any other reasons are entirely up to whatever you think should be appropriate to the story. Anyway, there's a big old elephant, and apparently he's a good-natured elephant because the 5 blind ascetics, one of them bumps into the elephant and the other says, come over here. We simply must examine this and figure out what this is. And so these 5 blind characters begin, well, each one of them bump into the elephant from a different angle. One happens to bump into the tail first. And he says, my goodness, this large entity of such great power and magnificence is obviously kind of ropey and long and extends from up high and descends from down low. And I can fit my hand around it, and it's kind of ropey, and it seems to come to a tip. And the others are listening, and the one who runs into the elephant's leg says, no, this grand entity that we've run into is much like a tree trunk, even larger. I can't even reach my arms all the way around this great mysterious entity that we have run into together. It's certainly not ropey, certainly can't fit my hand around it. It's much like a tree trunk with great nobility and strength, like a pillar. And the ascetic who has run into just the belly and the skin is rubbing the skin and says, no, I think you're both mistaken. Whatever it is that we've run into is rough and coarse and broad, and my hand can run over a very large expanse of its surface, and it's kind of smooth and kind of hard and kind of crusty, and it expands further than I can feel in any direction. And the 3 of them hear that, and then the 4th says, no, you're all wrong. And the ascetic who's touching the ear says, it's more like a flap or a fold of fabric, and it seems to wave in the breeze, and it has the most marvelous resilience and flexibility. And when I grab it, I can even wave it a little bit, and it seems to be much larger than the part that I can get my hand on. And that's what the 4th ascetic says. And then the 5th one, who happened to run into a tusk, says, my goodness, I cannot believe what you're saying about this massive entity that we've run into. It's actually incredibly smooth and as hard as marble. And the curvature and the beautiful aesthetic of this magnificent thing we've run into seems to extend for several feet, and the smoothness is beyond any smooth that I've ever touched before. So each one of these ascetics is getting a different angle of this one large entity. You probably get a sense of where this is going, don't you? But, somebody who's standing off to the side, another ascetic who's doesn't happen to be blind in the moment is watching all of this go on, and the elephant is watching it all going on as well. And the elephant is obviously good natured, having all of its various parts tugged and pull on. God only knows where they're going from there and what they'll run into and how they'll describe God, But be that as it may, the elephant is like good natured, feeling himself being felt from all these different angles. And the great yogi watching from up in a tree is somewhat amused at these spiritual seekers all seeing a different aspect of the elephant, such as it is. Well, of course, this has a spiritual connotation. When it comes to God, and I'm going to try to, just in the interest of using fewer syllables, I'm just going with that word. I know that I can say whatever the infinite higher organizing presence is in a lot of ways, and I know that you can too. But all of us are touching a different aspect of God. Some of us are getting the tail. Some of us are getting the trunk. Some of us are getting the smooth ivory tusk. Some of us are getting what comes out of the back end of the elephant and lands on the ground. And we're not happy about that, if you know what I mean. But be that as it may, none of us are getting all of God at this point. And if we got all of God, well, here's a good question from the atheist. Why is God so hidden? Great atheist question. Well, whatever the answer is, if suddenly each and every one of us got the fullness and the absolute conscious explosion of the presence of God's being in our nervous system right now, we wouldn't be here anymore. It would probably kill us. If you touch 1,000,000 volts all at once, it's too much. So all of us are growing bit by bit. We learn a little bit about God by touching the tail. We learn a little bit about God by touching the ear and the trunk and the skin. But it's expanding every single day, and that's okay. We're getting the educational variety of this increase of whatever infinite higher organizing presence is. But we also can realize that whatever God is so much greater than the greatest thing that we can think of. We can't even come close. Now, this is opinion, and you can do with it what you will, but none of us have even come close to the expression, the breathtaking awe, glory, and wonder, and the absolute explosion of whatever ideas we may have had about God when we do encounter whatever that is. Whatever it is, it'll be larger and grander. It'll be more connected. It will be more unified. It will be wiser and more loving. It will be more eternal, more immortal, more loving, just more astonishing by a trillion-fold than the highest thought we've ever had. Enjoy your access of the elephant today. And I'll see you near the trunk. Bye.